Now, you're probably breathing a sigh of relief now that mask mandates have been scrapped, but can your employer still force you to wear a mask in the workplace? Let's find out now from employment lawyer Sherisa Rajah Baird, who joins us now all the way from London. Sherisa, thank you for your time and good morning to you. And I'm glad we're having this conversation just before, some people leave the house so they know what to expect from their employers. So what's the rule now that masks have been scrapped officially by government in South Africa? Can your employer still say, hey, according to company policy, you are mandated to wear your mask?
I'll give you the short answer, and that would be yes. I think that there are a number of considerations that people need to take into account. The first being, when masks were introduced in the very first place, we had issues around people who were not able to wear masks because of certain underlying health conditions, and that would need to be considered. The actual need to wear masks should be considered against an employer's occupational health and safety risks, considering that there are positive obligations in law on an employer to provide a healthy and safe working environment for its employees. So if you're an employer with an agile workplace, you're fully remote, maybe you're hybrid, those risks start to be diluted. If you're a fully operational 5 days a week, maybe 7-8 hours a day workplace, you need to start considering the risks in the workplace, people with underlying health conditions, ventilation in the workplace. And these are considerations that inform the very regulations that sit under the Occupational Health and Safety Act during the COVID pandemic that we're hopefully now coming out of and not going to ever go back in, but that might be utopian. Yeah. So those would be the sort of dynamics one would consider in implementing a rule that you would need to wear a mask in maybe certain areas. By example, here in the UK, mask wearing has been scrapped since April, and as at the beginning of this week, fully scrapped in toto in relation to transport, etc. However, as part of disease infection prevention and control in clinical areas, by example, you will find that healthcare professionals wear masks in certain restaurants and stuff where they're handling certain types of food. They're still wearing masks. So it really just depends on the rules of the workplace vis-a-vis the risks that are associated with that workplace.
Yeah, and also the same way we've seen employees, or at least some of them, challenging the vaccine mandates and policies, of course, in the workplace. Can employees equally challenge the employer then with regards to wearing masks at work?
Oh, absolutely. In the our employment tribunal here, we had an employee who was dismissed for refusing to wear a mask. The employee then took the dismissal to the tribunal on the basis that that was unfair, and the tribunal upheld that the rule was valid, notwithstanding that it's not a legal requirement to wear masks. There are a number of other considerations, like the ones we just discussed around health and safety, etc.
Yeah, and I think it's important for employees to hear this conversation, because one would wonder which rule upholds the other, which is more superior than the other. Is it the government saying that, masks are scrapped, or is it my employer? So I think because I could easily come to work and say, hey, my president says, as opposed to your employer saying, still, with that being said, as a government or an organizational, structure, this is how we would like to move forward. So which one do you think is superior than the other?
So I think it's a careful balancing act. Yeah. When weighing the competing interest of the employer, which we call managerial prerogative in the workplace, we have to look at the inherent requirements of the job, and we have to balance that to the well-being and safety of the general workplace. Particularly, in every workplace, you're going to have people with underlying health conditions. And it may not be that every employee either knows his or her health condition or comes forward, even if they know those health conditions. So you've also got to manage that. The fact that people might not come forward and tell you what you're actually dealing with, and you need to at all times make sure you've exhausted, as an employer now, your mandate in providing a healthy and safe working environment as far as that's reasonably practicable. In other words, to the best of your knowledge, as far as you have done everything you can, looked at the impact in the workplace. If we just said, throw the masks away, let's all get together, it's Friday, see you at the pub, I'll throw one more thing into the mix of all of this. Yeah. People with underlying health conditions are going to say, if you're scrapping masks, I don't feel safe to come back into your workplace.
Right.
So you need to reasonably accommodate me. And what do you do then? Like, how do you deal with that then?
That's a very good point.
Because COVID hasn't gone away. Now we've got monkeypox coming around. I don't know when this is all going to end.
Right.
So are people going to want to come into a workplace, putting the question differently, if you scrap masks, if I'm a primary carer, I care for elderly in my home, etc. What does that do for your workplace as a whole?
Well, I appreciate you contributing to this conversation. Very thought-provoking. Thank you so much, employment lawyer Sherisa Rajah Baird, just giving us, just a picture of what the reality is when you head to work, Gareth, and your employer may say you need to, of course, wear your mask. But what happens when your employee either challenges you or say, okay, then give me the option to work remotely?